President Trump met with national security team to discuss Syria. Then, as he was meeting, in came news that the FBI had raided his lawyers' offices, his personal lawyers' offices. The president then tweeted a couple of times, listen to this, a total witch hunt. Then another one, attorney-client privilege is dead. Sebastian Gorka is with us, Fox News national security strategist and author of the book Defeating Jihad. Sebastian, I think you share my feelings. I thought that was a flat-out disgrace and an appalling thing to happen in America. Go ahead.
It's truly outrageous. As a former Brit like yourself who chose this nation and is a proud American, you know, I never thought I'd see things like this happen. How long have we waited now, Stuart? What is it, more than a year with this investigation? And they're charging Paul Manafort with wire fraud with regards to working for the Ukrainian president a decade ago. It's a travesty. It's an utter, utter travesty. I thought being a Vietnam vet, being a Marine, Robert Mueller was an honorable man, but this is a political hatchet job.
You know, what troubles me is they raided his personal lawyer's offices, walked away with all the records. They'll go through those records. They're not supposed to use anything connected to the president, but it's going to be leaked. You know that the deep state will get hold of it and leak it, and that is outrageous again.
Right, and this is a very important point, Stu. So think about the fact we've had more than a year of investigation, and you know what the swamp is like. I work in the swamp. If there had been any evidence connecting the president to Russia and collusion, it would have already leaked. They only leak the stuff they found that's damaging in other ways, but has nothing to do with the original remit of the special counsel. So it's a travesty and it has to end.
So you're a national security guy. What do you think about the Syria situation? There's talk that maybe America should decapitate the Syrian regime and kill Assad. What would you say to that?
Well, number one, that's been illegal since the 1970s. We're not allowed to assassinate other heads of state. There is a statute that says the U.S. president cannot order the assassination of another head of state. But beyond that, it's stupid. It's dumb. Assad is evil. Yes, he's as bad or if not worse than his father. But he has the backing of Russia, he has the backing of Iran, and he even has the backing of China. So you're not going to improve the situation by getting rid of one man. We have to send a very clear message, and as I wrote in The Hill yesterday, the president is just about to do so with regards to chemical weapons and how that taboo cannot be broken again. And we're going to do things behind the scenes, covertly, to put an immense amount of pressure on him, his clique, his coterie in that dictatorship. But it's not going to be regime change because the geopolitical conditions do not obtain that would make that possible. And the president doesn't do that. He's not a neocon, Stu.
OK, now, if we take military action against Syria, strong military action of whatever kind, odds are that Russians and or Iranians will be casualties. That escalates significantly, doesn't it?
It does, but Russia is spread very, very thin. You look at what happened to the ruble yesterday. You look at the presence on the ground in Syria. It's not a significant one. And they've already lost a large amount. They're not even using their own troops because they realize how tenuous a situation they're in, and they're using paid mercenaries. So, yes, there will be casualties, and Iran has to pay a big price for their sponsorship of this regime. But, yes, these nations need to be sent a very clear message, and the president's about to do so.
Seb Gorka, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Important day. We appreciate it. Thanks, Seb. Okay.
Thank you, Stu.